By the end of this video, you're going to understand all the design fundamentals of underfloor heating. My name's Jonathan, I'm a mechanical engineer and the co-founder of H2X, which is a design software used by engineers to design thousands of engineering systems every month. Underfloor heating has been around for thousands of years. The Romans used hot smoke to heat up their floors, and in the modern day, as the world transitions to net zero targets and the rise of heat pumps, underfloor heating is a great partner in meeting these goals. They provide exceptional thermal comfort and they're an architect's dream because you don't have to look at the heating system. But a high-performance system design does require precise calculations. In this video, we're going to break down the calculations and help you to answer questions like, what pipe spacings are required to meet my room's heat loss? What water temperature is optimal? What pipe size is best for my design? And how many loops are required in my room? So let's get into it. To design a system, we first need to understand the variables. So some are dictated by the architect and others are up to us as engineers to decide. The variables that we'll be looking at are the desired room temperature, the floor finish, such as carpet or tile, the floor buildup, which is typically screed, and then we have the mean water temperature, so that is the average of the flow and return water through the pipes, the pipe spacing, which is the distance between the pipe centers, and lastly, it's the pipe diameter and the material. It's important to understand that there isn't just one right answer when it comes to pipe spacings and temperature. It is a trade-off, and the trade-off specifically is capital expenditure and operational expenditure. The two approaches is a more expensive but efficient system, or an inexpensive and inefficient system. So more specifically, if we look at the expensive and inefficient one first, this might take more time to install and you'll need more materials. The pipe spacings will be closer together, so there's more area for the heat output. And because there is more surface area, that means you can run at a much lower temperature, which means that energy usage over time will be much lower. The opposite of this is where you put the pipe spacings as far apart as you can. And that is less materials and it's faster to install, but because you have less surface area then, you are required to run that system at a much higher temperature, which is going to be ongoing energy costs. So just for some rough numbers, this could be 100 millimeters or 4 inches, whereas this could be 300 millimeters and 12 inches. In terms of temperature, this could be 35 degrees C or 95 Fahrenheit, and the high one could be more like 50 degrees Celsius and 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's walk through a practical design example together. First, you need to know the heat loss of the room. We're not going to cover it in this video because it is a complex topic on its own, so we're just going to start at 1 kilowatt, which equals 3,412 BTUs per hour. Once you've got the heat loss, you know that you need to design a system that's going to account for that heat loss. To do that, you need to know the heated area. It isn't as simple as looking at the area of the room. It could be, but you do also need to subtract any unheated areas. Examples of this would be a kitchen island, where you don't actually want to run the pipes below it, you're going to go around it. If you allowed for unheated areas in the calculations, it's going to ruin the next part of the calculation. You're going to get it wrong. So just to work through this, you might have a 15 square meter or 161 square foot room, but this kitchen island is 3 square meters, which is 32 square feet. And to work out our heated area, we just need to subtract that, and that leaves us with 12 square meters and 129 square feet to work with. It's important to get that right because now we're going to look at the target output on an area basis. Now we have that part correct, it means the target output will be correct too. It's simply the heat loss divided by the heated area. And what that is, it's the 1,000 watts of heat loss or the 3,412 BTUs of heat loss divided by the available area, which is 12 square meters and 129 square feet. And that means when we design our system now, we must at least achieve an output of 83 watts for every square meter and 26 BTUs per hour for every square foot. Now that we have that number, we can refer to the CIBSE Underfloor Heating Design Guide to work out what our available options are here. So looking at this table, we have here a 16mm pipe, which is 1/2 inch, it's PEX, it's within a screed floor, and it has a stone tile finish. In this example, let's assume the room temperature is 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And just like we discussed earlier, there is several ways to hit the target. The first way we're going to look at is the low capital expenditure, but the high operational expenditure. So that's the 50 degrees Celsius or 122 degree Fahrenheit water. That means we only need to put pipe spacings in of 300mm or 12 inches, which means it's going to be cheap in terms of needing less materials and less time spent, but the client is going to have much higher energy bills forever. The opposite is using a lower water temperature, such as 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. With this, we need 150mm spacings or 6 inches, so much closer together. So more pipes, more time spent installing. However, it's going to give your client lower energy bills forever. And there is middle ground too, if you didn't want to go to one extreme or the other. If we look at 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit water, that would require 250mm or 10-inch spacings. And it is critical to monitor the floor surface temperature to ensure the occupant comfort and to prevent damage to the floor finish. According to the industry standards, you don't want to exceed 29 degrees Celsius or 84 degrees Fahrenheit for occupied zones like living rooms or kitchens. In wet areas like bathrooms, you don't want to exceed 33 degrees Celsius, which is around 90 degrees Fahrenheit. To look at an example here, let's say we had 50 degree water, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was going through pipes at 100mm spacings, or 4 inches. The floor surface would hit 36.7 degrees Celsius, or 98.1 degrees Fahrenheit. This could lead to a failure, and it could get uncomfortably hot for the occupant. Once you've done your room calculations, you can then start the design layout. The first part of the design is placing the manifold. Typically, a good place to start is aiming for a central location. The reason being is between the rooms and the manifold, you have to run transit pipes. The longer these pipes are, the more pressure drop there will be, and you typically want to aim for even lengths and pressure drop throughout the whole system. For example, if you place this manifold down here, yes, this loop would be shorter and this one will be longer, so it might be a similar amount of pipe, but it wouldn't be a similar amount of pressure drop. And you have to size the pump on the manifold to the highest pressure drop. So you really want to keep all transit pipes as short as possible. If you place the manifold centrally and then to the two furthest parts of the building, the transit pipes are getting really long or too long for what you want to design to, that's when you need to start considering placing two manifolds and putting one at either end of the building. And what's really important to understand about the transit pipes is they have hot water in them, and they are going to be wanting to emit heat as soon as they leave the manifold. And although some people like to design that way, it isn't the best practice. Reason being is we've done our calculations. The heat emitted and the heated area is only based on this room. So if we're allowing our system to emit heat in other rooms like the corridor, that means there's going to be less heat to emit when we get to the room, which is not good. And usually this is a really small room, so if you've got 5 different sets of transit pipes coming out of a manifold, it can get really hot in that room, which can be really uncomfortable and cause system failures for the floor. So you want to insulate it so that doesn't happen, and yes, you save the heat output for the area. The other consideration is the controls too. If we are losing heat in a room that we don't want to, that means the thermostat controlling this loop might never reach its desired temperature, which means it's running constantly. The room's not getting hot enough, but this room will be getting really hot. And it won't turn off because this thermostat is just going to tell it to keep running. So if you have that case all across the building, you're going to have a very hot room somewhere and other rooms could be cold. And one of the most common questions as well is how many loops do I need in a room? So if you have a very large room, even if you've got a small run of transit pipes, you could still exceed the maximum loop length. There is no single number for the maximum loop length because it is really dependent on the pressure loss in the system, and that then depends on the pump that comes with the manifold. However, people use 100 meters or 330 feet just as a starting point. Let's just look at this room here as an example. If it's a really big room and the loop length overall is 180 meters, and we didn't want to exceed 100, then what we want to do is, after starting by trying 1, we want to cut it down the middle, just hypothetically, and say we're going to put 2 loops in. And these loops just generally should both be 90 meters now, which is below the 100 meters or the 330 feet. So you need to repeat that process for all the rooms, and that will tell you how many loops that you need. And then you also have a choice on the layout style of the loops itself in the room. So this is below the floor so no one can see it, but there are benefits and cons to the different options. I just simplified the options into 2 here. The first one, typically known as a double serpentine or a spiral or a snail, and the bottom one, single serpentine or linear. The difference here, so I've indicated the flow, which is the hotter water in red, and the return, which is the slightly cooler water in blue. If we take the spiral, first of all, you can see because we're running the hotter and the cooler pipes next to each other, it's going to create a very even temperature across the floor. You're not going to notice hot areas and slightly cooler areas. So that is the best practice. However, for the people installing it on site, it is going to take longer because there's a lot more planning and consideration going into it. The more single serpentine or linear one is the opposite. So it's easier to install, but it's not as good for the occupants. Reason being, as you can see with the colors here, because it's just going from one end of the room to the other, one end is getting the hotter pipes and one end is getting the cooler pipes. So in this room, you could notice a difference that one part of the room is hotter than another part. Now, let's design our underfloor heating system in H2X. First, you'll run your heat loss calculations right here in the software. These are based on your local climate data and built to the relevant standards that you select. Just trace over your floor plan and the software gives you the heat loss for each room based on your chosen materials. Before jumping into the underfloor heating design, head to the settings to make sure your design is going to follow your preferences. The key one here, as we discussed earlier, is your floor finish. Tile gives off much more heat than carpet, which acts more like an insulator. You can also set your preferred layout pattern and your maximum loop length, such as to 100 meters. So this means the maximum coil length will always match what you are buying. Now for the design. Start by placing your manifold. Ideally, place it somewhere central, and unless you're a fan of the industrial look, tuck it away somewhere like under the staircase. In the manifold properties, select the rooms you want to connect, and just like that, it runs all the pipe layouts for you automatically. And the spacing is meeting each room's heat loss. You'll see that the transit pipes are taking the shortest path between the manifold and the room. And also notice how they're bunched together, because that is deliberate. As we discussed earlier, they're not designed to give off heat until they get to the room. If you do want to take a different path, you can click on a room and then choose one of the waypoints to reroute the transit pipe in that direction. Now let's adjust the mean water temperature to see the effect that that has on the loop spacings. And also notice right now that all the room text is green. That indicates that the design is providing enough heat to overcome the heat loss we calculated earlier. If we lower the mean water temperature, that will lead to lower energy costs, but higher material costs. As you'll notice, the pipe spacings move closer together. You also need to be careful not to go too high. Yes, you will see the text in the rooms turn green, but you will also get a warning that will tell you the floor surface temperature exceeds safe limits. So the key is to find a sweet spot. And you'll see here, the pipe spacings have tightened up because of the lower temperature, but the text in the rooms is green, and that is key. Another important part is to make sure your unheated areas are marked in the project. The most common areas are things like kitchen counters or a kitchen island. So as we discussed in the video earlier, this reduces the available area for heat output. So you will notice the layout change, and more often than not, the pipes need to be closer together to compensate for the area they can't fill. You'll notice some rooms have a red warning box around the loop length. That means the loop length has exceeded the maximum length that you set in the settings, and you'll now require multiple loops in these rooms. It is an easy fix, and you can split the loops manually, but I prefer the automatic approach because it's much faster. You have a range of different options to choose from, and the best one depends on the room type. Simple rooms can generate well off of the low effort one. More complex rooms may require going for a medium or high effort. You'll wait a couple of seconds longer, but you'll be much happier with the result. You can also override the layout pattern on any specific room. If you did want to run a linear layout for any reason, you can change that in the properties. But as you can see by looking at this, one side of the room does get hotter water than the other, and this can be noticeable to the occupant. There is also the option for spiral, which is another great choice for user comfort because it also follows the counterflow pattern. When you are ready, head over to the results. Here you'll find detailed information at both the room level and the manifold level. And also, if you have designed it, the software will calculate the full hydronic system for you. So this would include the heat pump, the recirculation pump, the pipe network, and emitters such as radiators. Additionally, it will also calculate the wider HVAC and plumbing systems if you have also designed them. But back to the underfloor heating system, we can see the manifold includes results for pump duties, system volumes, total heat load, and much more. And at the room level, you can view specific information like the floor temperature, the flow rates, and the loop length. Once you're happy with everything, you've got a range of exports. The branded PDF is the one people love the most. It includes your logo, 3D views, and full schedules for all of your manifolds and loops, ready to share with clients. There's also the design report, which is a spreadsheet of all the calculations if you need to pass those on. The bill of materials gives you a complete list of every component, size from your design that's needed to install. And if you're working in AutoCAD, the software integrates with that too. And that's designing underfloor heating with H2X. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that helpful. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. And if you'd like regular content like this, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell.